tell me, in a way, you became part of the situation in Hong Kong. You were not only an observer, but you were also kind of a participant. How tough was that, and how much cooperation did you get from the movement against, against the repression promoted by China?
When I was in Hong Kong, I felt like I was a photographer all the time, but I was trying to get as close as possible to the protests, in the sense that I was filming as close as I could to the protesters. So I was following them as closely as possible for a very long time. Still, I felt like a journalist, so to speak. What has changed was that after the movie was published and after we got nominated for the Oscars, the documentary became a part of the story, in the sense that Beijing, the political leadership in China, wanted to censor the Oscars due to our documentary. So in that sense, I now feel that the movie is a continuation of what we were covering in the movie, which was how the room for democracy is shrinking very fast in Hong Kong.
The Chinese government wanted to forbid the Oscars, the live transmission of the ceremony, due to the documentary.
Yes, so that 2 days after we got nominated for the Oscars, we read media reports that the political leadership in China had told the local media not to broadcast the Oscars live and to downplay the sensitive parts of the show, as far as we understand. And that means that they don't want to talk about our documentary. And actually, just recently, the same happened in Hong Kong. For the first time in 52 years, the Oscars will not broadcast in Hong Kong live on TV. And that's also the reason we understand is also due to our documentary, which is about the protests for democracy against Beijing and the local government in Hong Kong.
So Anders, how did all this started? You went to Hong Kong and then, or you read and you felt like, I want to do this, I want to be part of a change, or I need to.
Yeah.
What was,
I didn't really have a proper plan. I was already in the region. I was traveling in South Korea and Taiwan when the protests broke out in 2019. And when I saw it in the news, I was very curious how that would play out, how a group of very young people could go out in the streets, demand to keep their democracy in a direct protest against the political leadership in China. So I went first out of curiosity. And then when I arrived, I got totally fascinated by the intensity in the streets and how the protesters were organizing in very inventive, creative ways. And I wanted to capture that intensity as close as I could with the camera. So then that was basically what I did. I was trying to move with the movements of the streets, following the protesters in what turned out to be a very long period. The protests lasted all through the summer and through the autumn and until the winter.
So Anders, could you tell us in few words, what is the movie about, so that I can use your thing with a clip?
Yes, so Do Not Split is about the protest for democracy, which broke out in Hong Kong in the summer of 2019. So it started as a protest against an extradition bill, but very fast turned into these big mass demonstrations for basic democratic rights. So Hong Kong was afraid that they would lose their basic human rights. So a big group of people in the city took to the streets and protested against the political leadership in China. And the protesters were afraid that Hong Kong would be changed into what they say is another city in mainland China. And that's an area which is not governed in a democratic way. Hong Kong has been in a special situation for quite a long time. It's called one country, two system principles, which means that Hong Kong formally is a part of China, but It was supposed to have its own political way of being ruled and its own judicial system. And they had a much bigger extent of democratic rights than what people have in mainland China. But that is changing very fast, and that process you can see in our movie.
So Anders, last question, how important is it, or was it for you when you got nominated, the film got nominated, and you're part of the OSCARS history now? I mean,
of course, I and the team became happy for the recognition. At the same time, we are happy because this can bring more attention to the very critical situation in Hong Kong. The process we are showing in the movie has not stopped at all. It's still ongoing. So these human rights, which we focus on, which are freedom of press, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, are under great pressure and are actually disappearing in Hong Kong right now. So you can see that in the movie, and then you can follow the process and see what is happening also with the movie, since it's now being censored by China. So it's all became one story.